Welcome to the Alchemy Experience podcast, where transformation isn't just talked about, it's lived. I'm Erin, and around here, we're turning breakdowns into breakthroughs, pain into power, and survival into serious thriving. Whether I'm flying solo or vibing with a badass guest, we dive into all the things on health, creating beautiful relationships, and building wealth. We're keeping it real, raw, and ridiculously empowering. It gets a little juicy, a little bit wild, and super inspiring. This isn't just another podcast, it's your permission slip to evolve loud, proud, and on purpose. Let's go light the world on fire. I am back here at the Alchemy Experience podcast, where we talk about all the things. And I am here today with Erin Liberty. I am so excited because we have become kind of fast friends and just in each other's space, and we do so many similar things, and I'm so excited to share you with my side of the world today. But little intro before we get started and let her take it away. But Erin Liberty is the founder of High Vibe Living. You're the creator of elevated identity architecture. I just love that. Can we just mic drop on that one? Elevated identity architecture. That's so glad you trademarked that because that is perfection. You're a speaker, an entrepreneur, an interior design extraordinaire, an author, a mom, a wife, a friend, all things human outside of all of those other accolades. And I'm just really excited to dive in about the nuances of entrepreneurship and how that has evolved for you into a place that you never even imagined. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of my world. And just tell my peeps a little bit more about you.
Well, thank you, Erin, for having me. And I mean, for some reason, I attract Erins into my life and I just love them. There's just something about our name. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but or you know this, our name stands for bravery. It's actually an Ireland name. It comes from Ireland and it stands for bravery. So I definitely see that in you. So I wanted to say that first. But thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am all those things. And it's so interesting because I've evolved a lot in the last 6 years. And I used to identify with a lot of labels. And now I'm just Erin Liberty, but it's interesting when you start being a guest on a lot of podcasts and you're sharing your story that you have to kind of go back to those labels like who am I? Where I have fully surrendered to the fact that I am a being who is constantly evolving, and who I was yesterday is not necessarily who I am today. But for this moment, I will put that hat on to share a little bit more about who I am. So, as Erin said, I am the founder and creator of High Vibe Living, and we do have the elevated identity architecture framework within that. And everything is really based on my own personal evolution and experience. I went through the journey of my life up until age 40, really not knowing who I was and attaching labels and identities to myself that once I was able to strip those all away, I realized I actually didn't even know who I was. And all of those labels and those identities were formed through everything outside of myself that I was looking for validation in. So I used to work in the corporate world, and I do feel extremely grateful for that 20-year journey. However, if you know me and my energy, you kind of pause for a moment to process corporate journey and Erin Liberty because I am such a creative person. And so my evolution and sort of this process of reinventing myself started when I left my corporate career in 2020 to follow my passion and go all in on my side business, which was my interior design business.
I love it. So tell us more about how you went from this like corporate girl, like boss babe over there, to like interior design. Were you doing that line of work? Because it's just like, it's so funny, right? Like I tell people what I used to do, and it somewhat aligns with some of the pieces that I do today, like when I break it down and talk about it. But some people are like, how did you get here when you started off like way over there, right? So tell us a little bit more about how that shift occurred. Like, have you always loved design? Was this something that when you were a little girl envisioned yourself doing, or is this something that like sort of fell into your lap? Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, I love this question. And it's interesting because I also have sort of stepped back and observed how did I get here? Because it does kind of seem like left brain, right brain. But now that I understand my human design, it makes a lot of sense. So when I was in corporate, I was always that kind of like square peg, round hole type of person. Like I was extremely bubbly and strategic, but creative. But I also had the analytical side, which is how I was able to become a professional accountant and, study business at the executive level. But it was because of that process part of my brain, how I could put pieces together that kind of helped with the mathematical side, and that I had studied it for 10 years. But then I have always been creative. So even thinking back, I didn't even realize it at the time, but thinking back to my childhood, yeah, I loved redesigning my room. My parents and my dad was so handy, and my mom was very creative. So they did a lot of their own interior design and renovation work themselves. Like they built houses. I was always a part of that. So when I was working in corporate and when I met my husband, Joe, he was also very handy. They called him the wood whisperer because he's like so talented with like woodworking. So we were like the perfect combination because I had vision, right? And that's it did tie into my strategic role when I worked in the natural gas industry. But my true passion was being able to walk into a room and I can instantly see what it can be. And, this also does, like you said, once we get to the nuts and bolts, like there was a reason that I went deep into interior design and working with people because that is one of our pillars in high vibe living and in the architecture because you can't be the highest version of yourself and expand if you're going home to a house that is, sucking the life out of you or not supporting, it doesn't have a foundation to support the expansive life that you want. So I myself personally went through that whole process of saying, wait a minute here. Why am I burning the midnight oil and being a weekend warrior working, to flip houses and do all these things that I'm passionate about, and then going to work every day in an environment that did not align with who I was in my soul. So I've always, to answer your question more succinctly, like I've always loved design, but I don't think that I thought that was a possible career for me. And it wasn't until I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. What do I want to do? And I had also gone back. So we built a house in 2012. And then in 2014, I wanted to, and hired a decorator. Don't tell anyone. I hired a decorator.
Except for all the people listening.
Yeah. So, but this is a great lesson because I had the talent, I had the vision, but I didn't have the confidence or belief in myself. And so in 2012, when we built the house, I was there weren't very many interior decorators or designers in my town. So I found this lady who kind of did interior decorating on the side. And I said, hey, like, will you come consult on our new house? And so I told her all my ideas, and she's like, why did you hire me? But it was that, hey, I want to make sure that this is a good decision. This is, we're building a house, this is a lot of money. So I saw the value in having that outside counsel. So then when we went to redo our basement, I said to my husband, I was like, I want to do it myself. But because I thought that I needed something outside of myself all the time, I went back to school to get my interior design degree. And when I say this now out loud, I'm like, I thought that I needed to get an interior design degree after I already had 3 other degrees to be able to design my own basement. But I went back to school And then again, someone outside of me said, hey, you're really good at this. You should like do this for other people. You should start a business. So I started Liberty Interior Design, and I was doing it part time while I was working in the corporate world. So that's kind of like the big story. So when I was decided finally, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I took the summer with my boys, and then I was like, well, it makes sense to jump into interior design.
Amazing. I just want to pause because it is so ironic and funny that it's like we're highly educated humans and I just want to create a room in my house, but I'm going to go get a degree so that I can create a room in my house, right? Where it's like, girl, you have all you need right here to like do it. But sometimes we feel like we have to have a specialty in it or the knowledge, right? And so, I mean, divine intervention, kind of pushed you to do that so that obviously a higher version of you knew like, hey, this is something you're going to actually do. So go get this now while you're learning this process and doing it so that you can launch into it. So it all worked out as it always does, right? But it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of comical. It's like a little wink from the universe, like, hey, how funny is it that I'm pushing you to go get this degree for one room in your house, but hey, you're gonna need it or you're gonna want it for this next level life that you're creating. So amazing. Amazing. It resonates so much with me as you're talking because I also have a method, and we've talked about this before, in the unboxed method, in, really having a vision and from that vision, reverse engineering to where we are, and then create, which is like creating that roadmap to get to that vision, and then those action steps, right? And so, those little mile markers on our life of getting to that vision, it's so cool. And so, as you're talking about the elevated identity architecture and that's really your method, that's your framework on how you operate within your business, within personal, professional life. And I just love the language of that method, but also knowing a little bit about you, love how that has evolved for you. So, why don't you tell my peeps a little bit about you and that method and how your interior design started off is really getting in there with people, getting in their mind, trying to help them create and cultivate that vision and getting it to life, how that's transformed into really coaching people in their own transformation, not just within a room or their home, but then their whole life.
Oh, I'd love to, and thank you for the opportunity. It's honestly really just like my origin story. It's like what happened with me, and then how I started to see my whole life differently, my whole experiences differently, and that becoming the observer of the 40 years prior, and then using all of that knowledge to help me in the current moment. That's what quantum leaping is really about. And I feel like that is where I was able to kind of back up and say, okay, wait a minute. Now that I'm observing this all differently from an expanded version of myself, I feel like I've got the cheat code and I want to scream it from the top of my lungs to help everyone. So when I started doing the interior design, it was also at the same time that I was stripping down 20 years, actually, probably even more like 30 years of identity, right? I was Erin Liberty, senior leader in the natural gas industry, and I defined myself based on my education, my accolades. That was who I was, and that was my identity. So when I walked away from that, I was walking away from that identity that I was so connected with. Ultimately, because I knew I had to, but also I think from a spiritual perspective, I had to step away from looking outside of myself for everything, to be stripped down bare to nothing, to realize that everything that like you said, that I needed was inside of me.
Mm.
And from that point on, everything that I've done has come from that connection to within. And that was really the foundation of high vibe living, because what happened was as I was stripping down that identity, I was looking for ways to learn how to figure out, who am I? Who am I? At 40 years old, I didn't feel connected to my life, and I had achieved everything that the world told me would make me happy and successful. And I didn't feel like that. So I had to tear it all down. And when I did, I met all of these amazing people, because here's the thing. I didn't know anything about spirituality, and I say it in quotations because I think there's a lot of different, versions of it, but I didn't know anything about it until I started during that pandemic with all my free time and my newfound freedom. I went and just started learning. And so I was finding all of these amazing people who I was curious about the work they were doing. I was curious about energy. I was curious about people who had gifts, and at that time I was labeling things. So, like psychics or energy healers and all these things. Now I don't label anything because I know that we all have our own authentic gifts.
Mhm.
And that's just who we are. It was labeled by, society. So I go on this journey and I meet all these people, and I built this amazing, successful business in 1 year. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I want to help these people build their businesses. So that's what started High Vibe Living. Is I was like, oh, I'm going to create a premier self-development platform. And I called my first course, I'll never forget it, was called Soul Life Business, because I taught people how to take what it was they were passionate about and turn it into a really successful business, which is what I had done. And then through that year of doing that work and creating that course and being in people's homes and learning about energy, I started to make the association to people's homes, what they wanted, and then their energy. And I was like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. You're saying you want to spend $1 million to renovate your home, but really, I think you just need to maybe grieve the loss of your mom.
Mhm.
And so the two worlds really started to intermingle. And the pillars of the elevated identity architecture are the mind, the body, the soul, and our environment. And
Mhm.
so to answer your question about where does interior design fit, it really fits in environment, but environment is not only our homes, obviously it's the things we have in our homes because everything is energy, but it's, who do we choose to allow into our lives, our
Yeah.
community? Who do we spend time with? And so when we broke down all those parts, that was really what happened with me. My body was failing me at 40 because my nervous system was shutting down from stress, right? I was spending time in an environment in a community that did not align with who I was. And I was a high vibrational, happy person who was, not in that environment. And my soul I was not connected at all, right? And my mind was chaos. And so I needed to go through the different pillars to work through that to get back to a state of being, which was just clear. And so that was kind of the evolution of, high vibe living and bringing in the interior design and then ultimately creating the architecture.
Yeah. I love that. It makes so much sense when you break it down, right? And as a provider, as a therapist, the first thing we're taught in like social work 101 is like and psych 101 is nature versus nurture, right? It's like this is like I taking like AP classes in high school and going off to college. I remember that course. I remember that learning that and learning the importance of both tapping into the psychological, biological piece of us, but then also our environment holds such weight in how we think, how we operate, what we believe about ourselves and the world around us, right? Like, there's so many studies back to the days of, when they did testing on animals about like, nurture versus nature and all of that. Like that's still so relevant today. And we have to sometimes just come back to basics of like, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation before you invest in all this. Is this masking something you actually are going through in a transformation way rather than we can change our environment a million times over, but if we're not adjusting to that internally, it's not going to matter. Or vice versa, right? If we're doing so much work internally, but our environment is chaos, those worlds are going to collide. So I love that this is something that you have brought to the world and really sharing with people. And like, this is the secret sauce to evolution and transformation. I love it so much. That's my jam. So thank you for sharing that. Let people know where they can find you. Like, what is the best place for people to follow you, connect with you? If somebody's like, "Ooh, I like this vibe, high vibe living," where can they find you?
Well, thank you so much for seeing the ultimate vision because for a long time it took me a while to even, you know, like spirits like knocking on on the door, like, come on, Aaron, can't you make this connection? Yeah, yeah. The process of the same, cycle repeating itself. But I got it now and I see it and I'm excited about it. So you guys can find me at erinliberty.com. And that's kind of the home of everything. I got to the point where it's like, okay, it's time for a personal brand when everyone's like, wait a minute, what do you do? You're an interior designer, you own a beach resort, you have a company called High Vibe Living. Wow, that's confusing. So I'm like, okay, just go to erinliberty.com and you'll be able to see how everything fits together.
I love that so much. Yeah, and I think something really interesting. I have a contact I'll throw out. I'll name drop Isaac Mashman. He is really cool. He does his whole life's work is branding. Like it's just personal brand, right? He's written books on it and does all that. And so I love that you're sharing that because I think that is something that if you're in your 40s, right? And you're like, what the hell am I doing? And what is my like we all have a brand. Whether
Yeah.
we own a business or we're working in corporate America or we're working for somebody else, we're working for ourselves, whatever it is you're doing, we do all have our own personality and our own personal brand. And that is completely aside from business. And so I love that you bring that up because I think you and I, yes, we're very entrepreneurial and we're very invested in other people building businesses so we can support them in that transformation, right? But we're not just helping people in that regard, we're helping people transform their life holistically. And so I love that you just brought up the personal brand because if you are finding yourself in this season of, I'm kind of stuck, not in a bad way, not in a way that's like, I can't live and I need like, therapy intervention, but just in a way of like, life is good, but like, I know there's more. Reach out to Erin, connect with Erin, or go on erinliberty.com and just kind of peruse in what there is to offer because I think you're doing that. You're helping people identify their personal brand through their environment, through what they're going through internally, and you're helping meld both of those together in a beautiful branding way. So I think that's such a oh, it's so
I
just
love that. And
chef's
thank
kiss, you
you.
know?
Yeah. Mwah. Thank you so much for bringing that up because it leads into like ultimately what I believe. Everybody always asks me, like, what do you think high vibe living is? Ultimately, I think that high vibe living is being able to express yourself in the most authentic way possible. And that's not one thing. That's being able to evolve and grow. And I always tell people if there's a dream in your heart, it's because it already exists in a vibration. And we get to decide, in this lifetime how far we want to journey, how far we want to evolve and expand. And ultimately, what Erin and I do, what we do for our clients, what we do for the world is to help you bring that light, that dream, whatever it is in your heart, into your physical reality.
Mhm.
Because I have studied a lot, and it's so funny because from that moment that I decided I had everything I needed within, I have not taken another course. And when I work with people, they're like, "Oh, this is not when you work with me, it is not a course. I am a mentor who guides you back to yourself so that every time you're ready to expand and evolve, you know that you don't need anyone else outside of you. Yeah, it's great to have somebody to hold you accountable or to remind you, think bigger. But ultimately, what I want to do is to empower people and to show them how to connect mind, body, soul, and environment to have what you need around supporting you,
Mm.
giving you that foundation so that you can expand and evolve into that elevated identity. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And I think the biggest thing that I would want to share with your audience and to leave with you is whether you have a business or not, you are a personal brand. And there is no one else like you in this world. And you know what? We're all one collective, whatever you believe, we are all one. And when we are all operating at the highest vibration of love and authenticity, we fit together like a perfect billion piece puzzle.
Hmm.
And that is how we bring the new world in. And that is how we evolve together and create a beautiful place. Like everybody says, like, what do you wish for? World peace. That's how we do it. That is how we create world peace, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love it so much. Mic drop. Yeah, so my last question was going to be if there was a nugget, what would you leave people with? And you just answered it. So I don't even have to ask it. You're so good at this. You have your own podcast as well. So I will link all of that in the show notes for you guys, how to get in contact with Erin and all her social media handles so that you can vibe with her and find her and follow her through her story and really see if she's somebody that you want to connect with or just follow and, start to like her stuff and get engaged in that because it has been fun getting to know you and seeing that you have retreats that you offer and you have various different things that you offer. So, as do I. So, it's cool seeing somebody who very mirror, we do a ton of the same things, but it's just like it's cool because we have our own flair and our own personal brand. And so I love that that is what we talked about today. So, thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your wisdom. And I know that you are just going to continue to grow and share your wealth of knowledge with people. So,
Thank you so much. And I hope to see you guys all very soon.
yes. Thanks for tuning in to the Alchemy Experience. If this episode lit something up inside you, go ahead and share it with someone who's ready to rise too. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with me online on all social media at The Alchemy Experience. Because transformation loves company, and together we all rise. And hey, don't just survive this week. Thrive like you frickin' mean it. Let's go let it up. Talk soon.